makers need to be reminded of the numerous benefits that biofuels can bring in reducing CO2 emissions and diversifying the energy mix. The positive role of sustainability and labour standards in parsing good from bad biofuels should also be reinforced, while discouraging governments from picking winners and losers by feedstock. Work done by industry bodies such as the ASTM in defining common biofuel specifications should be highlighted and built on. Rigorous scientific arguments should be deployed to define the role biofuels play in global food pricing dynamics, the subject of much misinformation and media alarmism in recent months. And finally, there's the continuing need to articulate the importance of policy certainty, stability and clarity, a message which applies wherever one sits in the biofuel sector. After the travails of 2002, I expect many in this audience were hoping for a reasonably quiet 2009. The global recession and financing drought and ongoing debates about biofuels' environmental impact have put paid to those hopes. It's tempting to retreat, to disappear from view, and to sit things out. But doing so would miss an opportunity. Now is the time to get on the front foot, to join together and articulate a shared vision for the future, a vision of more jobs, improved energy security, enhanced international development, and cleaner transportation fuels. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lord John Browne. You have spoken exactly 15 minutes, sharp. Thank you very much. Now, Honorable Dallas Tonsager, I give you the floor for your 15 minutes.
President Yank, distinguished and honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank the Ethanol Summit 2009 for the opportunity to be here today to discuss the United States renewable energy and specifically United States Department of Agriculture biofuels programs. Biofuels hold great potential for reducing greenhouse gas emissions and improving not just the United States or Brazil's, but the world's energy security. And by doing so, biofuels offer tremendous opportunities for farmers, ranchers, forest owners, and rural communities. For rural America, the production of biofuels represent not merely another market for farm and forest products, but also present an exciting new opportunity for local ownership, new business formation, and sustainable economic development. I believe these opportunities can present themselves in many countries around the world. During this plenary session, speakers have been asked to comment on biofuels in a global context. To do so, we cannot look at biofuels alone. We must consider renewable energy and biofuels as part of the overall energy mix, especially as alternatives to fossil-based and petroleum fuels, and with acute attention to national and international environmental objectives. We must also recognize that energy is a global industry and that national perspectives will differ. For the United States, President Obama has set some very specific goals for his administration, which include reducing the United States' dependency on imported fossil fuels, increasing renewable energy production, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and creating quality jobs. The United States has 5% of the world's population, but consumes about 25% of the world's total energy. And as a consequence, energy security is a matter of great concern to the United States. Last year, the price of crude oil increased to almost $150 per barrel, more than double the average price of oil in 2006. And the price of gasoline rose to unprecedented levels in the United States. For oil importing countries, the surge in prices represented capital flowing out of the country, and therefore capital was unavailable for domestic programs and for investment. For business, it represented dramatically higher operating costs. For consumers, higher gasoline prices reduced the amount of income available for food and other discretionary spending. Prices, of course, have receded this year's level due to declining demand and global economic weakness. Despite the recent drop, however, oil prices have now begun to recover, and in the future are expected to rise substantially. Continued volatility is also to be expected. For the United States, this is a significant strategic problem. More than 60% of our transportation fuels are imported. If nothing is done, U.S. imported dependency is expected to increase 75% by the year 2030. Clearly, the United States must diversify its energy sources. Bioenergy and biofuels are alternative to fossil fuels. Promoting clean, sustainable, domestically produced, advanced biofuels is a high priority for the President and for the United States Department of Agriculture. The United States is already a world leader in biofuels production. At the beginning of the decade, the U.S. produced 1.6 billion gallons of ethanol and 2 million gallons of biodiesel. Last year, those figures soared to over 9 billion gallons and 700 million gallons, respectively. Production is expected to approach 11 billion gallons of ethanol this year. This success is the result of vision, collaboration, and hard work of many thousands of dedicated individuals, both in the private sector and in government. The development of the biofuels industry has not come without criticism. Not all the criticism has been accurate. Last year, for example, the biofuels industry came under sharp criticism with claims that biofuels production was driving up global food prices. But further research has demonstrated that many factors helped to push food prices higher last year. These factors included flooding in the U.S. Midwest, leading to concerns of production shortfalls for corn and soybeans, export restrictions by some countries limiting tradable supplies, and global economic growth leading to increased demand for food as developing countries grow and people improve their diets. In addition, multi-year droughts in Australia, New Zealand, and reduced wheat and milk production, drought and dry weather in Canada, Ukraine, the European Union, and the United States adversely affected grain production in 2007. And higher energy prices increased farm production and food processing, marketing, and retailing, as well as transportation costs. To be sure, demand for corn, soy oil, and sugar cane from the biofuels industry also contributed to higher food prices, but to a much lesser extent than generally perceived. One cannot infer a simple linear relationship. Since reaching their peak last year, for example, food prices have dropped significantly, even as production of biofuels has continued to increase. Analysis by the Department's Office of Chief Economist indicates that increased biofuel productions in the United States over the past 3 marketing years accounted for about 30% of the increase in corn prices and 40% of the increase in soybean prices in that time period. Increases in raw commodity prices, however, passed through the retail food price at a much lower level. In the United States, the farm gate price of commodities is roughly 20% of the ultimate consumer cost. In the final analysis, biofuels did contribute slightly to retail food price increases, but they also significantly moderated the rise in gasoline prices. As the global industry evolves, it is important that the consuming public is educated as to the true benefits as well as the costs of biofuels production. The most recent major energy policy legislation in the United States, the Energy Independence and Security Act of 2007, this is the act generally referred to as ESA, but for today I will call it the Energy Act. This includes aggressive renewable fuels consumption targets for the United States. The renewable fuel standards mandated by the Energy Act requires the United States to utilize in its fuel supply 36 billion gallons of biofuels by 2022. This amounts to between 20 and 25% of fuel transportation costs. The 2007 Energy Act is complex. The 36 billion gallon renewable fuel standards is an aggregate composed of multiple renewable fuel standards for several different categories of renewable fuels. These include cellulosic ethanol, bio-based diesel, other advanced biofuels, and a residual renewable fuel standard for conventional corn-based ethanol. This essentially caps corn-based ethanol at the fuel mix at about 15 billion gallons per year. Since almost all U.S. ethanol production today is corn-based, the important factor to note is the future dependence on second and third generation biofuels. The goals established by the 2007 Energy Act are predicated on the rapid development and commercialization of cellulosic ethanol and other advanced biofuels. The Energy Act also requires that renewable fuels meet greenhouse gas reduction thresholds as compared to conventional fuels, and requires that they are not produced on certain lands not cultivated or managed prior to the implementation of the Energy Act on December 19, 2007. These later provisions, and capping grain-based ethanol at 15 billion gallons, are designed to reduce the competition of biofuels for food crops. The Food Conservation and Energy Act of 2008 gave USDA important new tools in this area to expand and promote biofuels production. The 2008 Farm Bill is the second Farm Bill to explicitly include an energy title, which expanded USDA Rural Development's renewable energy portfolio. Rural Development is now in the process of implementing new or expanding programs to provide loan guarantees for the development, construction, and retrofitting of commercial-scale refineries, funding to encourage biorefineries to place the use of fossil fuels in plant operations with renewable biomass, funding to biotech producers to encourage production of next-generation biofuels from biomass and other non-corn feedstocks, and loan guarantees and grants to agricultural producers and rural small businesses for renewable energy production, energy efficiency investments, and energy audits. And even more recently, very recently, President Obama announced steps to intensify his administration's commitment to advance biofuels research and commercialization through the creation of the Biofuels Interagency Working Group, co-chaired by the Department of Agriculture, the Environmental Protection Agency, and the Department of Energy. The working group will also coordinate with the Biomass Research and Development Board, which has government-wide representation to undertake its work. The Biofuels Interagency Working Group will also work towards developing a comprehensive biofuels market development program. The increased collaboration between federal agencies will accelerate the production of and access to sustainable homegrown energy options by coordinating policies that impact supply, transportation, and distribution of biofuels, as well as identifying new policy options to improve the environmental sustainability of biofuels feedstocks. The Biofuels Interagency Working Groups will also work to develop policy to increase flex fuel vehicle production and assist in retail marketing efforts. In doing so, it will take into consideration land use, habitat conservation, crop management practices, water efficiency and water quality, life cycle assessments of greenhouse gas emissions. The President has also directed Secretary Vilsack to aggressively accelerate investments in new and development of biofuels. USDA is working hard to implement these directives. USDA commitment to biofuels is department-wide. We are conducting and supporting research into new and improved feedstocks and production processes. We are working to develop the potential of woody biomass, both for direct consumption and as a possible biorefinery feedstock. We are implementing new programs such as the Biomass Crop Assistance Program, which will provide support for the production of dedicated energy crops. And USDA has also managed a competitively awarded biodiesel fuel education program to educate government, private entities, and the public of the benefits of biofuel use. Last but not least,